Good afternoon, everyone. This is Professor Javier Zulca of Universidad Técnica de Ambato of Ambato, Ecuador, South America. It's a pleasure for me to introduce to you our research work, Tecno-Emotional Cuisine and the Human Sense Case Study, Ecuadorian Food Heritage. Introduction. This research work has fulfilled the established purpose, which was research the Ecuadorian food heritage and therefore its classification by regions and origins of both primary and processed products for 2 years. The beneficiary population has been classified through the dissemination of information that has been carried out throughout this time. The direct beneficiaries are the amateur and expert community in gastronomy by having gastronomic innovation with the use of Ecuadorian heritage products, counteracting the homogenization of the current diet. In the educational field, this research will allow molecular and avant-garde cooking practices to be carried out by having the necessary equipment and chemicals to produce this type of cuisine. Educational psychology and psychopedagogy students will benefit from the psychopathology of emotions by differentiating that there is a direct association with emotions. It can be distinguished that there is a contrast between emotional and physiological eating. Eating. The act of eating is said that is a priority to the biological need. People eat because they need to feed themselves. The senses participate building a performative narrative form in which passions such as pleasant memories, special tastes, and exquisite aromas are exposed or either unpleasant tastes plays a role in the act of eating. Food is located in a constant relationship between the natural and social, between the ecological, the biological and social-cultural, between the individual and the collective. It is a highly complex fact that has the capacity to transform culture as an abstraction into something as concrete as food. It can probably mean that any culture is served on a plate. In the kitchen, as in other branches of food research, sensory perception takes part in the upper vertex, and in other disciplines converge from an anthropological concept. Two concepts are key and are needed between them, that is to say, the cook and the diner. These two figures need sensory evaluation to relate the foods they create and consume, so that this action consolidates the classic definition of sensory evaluation. Scientific discipline used to evoke, develop, analyze, and interpret reactions and the characteristics of the products or the materials as they are perceived by the senses of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. Beginnings in traditional context. The study of emotions appeared with Williams, James, and Carl Lange since 1884 as psychological foundations of the understanding of human behavior. These foundations stated that the cerebral cortex receives responses and interprets the sensory stimuli that generate emotion. So they produce visceral and muscular changes in turn. If the necessary reinforcement of these stimuli is produced, a feeling behavior will be evidenced in front of the stimuli. The study of emotions is carried out under the connotation of understanding human behavior through the initial contributions. Studies on emotions to understand the relationship to different stimuli continue to advance based on common relationships made in the beginning. Many authors agree that emotions are response to structures of meaning in different situations. However, emotions are not all positive. They fall into a negative field when these stimulating actions involve the genesis of behavior. The basic emotions can be fused into two to originate advanced emotions. These advanced emotions are love, submission, fright, disappointment, remorse, contempt, trickery, and optimism. This theory supports subsequent studies of emotional intelligence as key factors in the idealization of human beginnings and traditional context. The term Techno-Emotional kitchen is a worldwide culinary movement of the early 21st century, whose main representative is Chef Ferran Adrià. This movement is made up of chefs of different ages and traditions in which their dishes aim to create emotions in the diner through the use of new techniques and technologies. Also, they were the discoverers or interpreters who used other chef systems and concepts previously developed. This doesn't pose any confrontation with tradition because many of these dishes are an evolution in their preparation. The impact of traditional cuisine within any place that intends to develop tourism is effective in the same proportion of the degree of perception that the visitor has of it. A first step for the correct management of traditional gastronomy, and which would become the main objective of this research, is to be certain of the elements that make it up as well as identifying them from the custom of the people of Puerto Viejo, from their daily life activities and their ancestry as Manabitas. What in Ferran Adria's restaurant El Bulli stands out in his innovative vision of gastronomy, in which there was no menu and it became an experience that could be tasted by the five senses. It is the starting point in the development of countless techniques with the use of chemicals in the cutting edge equipment which allowed chefs to obtain textures, flavors, and aromas. Now you can see a technique creation table where you can see a different technique, the year of creation, the equipment and the chemical compound used, and some results products. Food sovereignty. The Constitution of Ecuador, in its third chapter, Food Sovereignty, Article 281, states that food sovereignty constitutes a strategic objective and an obligation of the state to guarantee that individuals, communities, people, and nationalities achieve self-sufficiency in healthy and culturally appropriate food on a permanent basis. 13. Prevent and protect the population from the consumption of foods that are contaminated or that endanger their health or that science has uncertainty about its effects. 14. Acquire food and raw materials for social and nutritional programs, primarily from associative networks of small producers. Facial recognition through technological application tools. Facial recognition is defined as the identification of a person through the analysis of biometric characteristics, specifically of the face. The extraction of this type of information is related to their characteristics of mathematical processes and coincidence algorithms, thus allowing this to expand various fields, not only in the technological part. Currently, tourism has become a world power activity and therefore the creation of a project is proposed. This project articulates Web 2.0 and 3.0 tools linked to the field of tourism in all its classifications, thus allowing Ecuador and its regions to be promoted as a tourist destination. Artificial vision is used in several areas. One of them is the fight against terrorism and insecurity due to crime. All of them are used through efficient systems capable of recognizing strange or different situations from a routine, as well as the scenarios of the gastronomy and tourism. Materials and methods. The methodology used in this research project is based on experimentation because most of the dishes made by the undergraduates in process of their graduation were tasted by students of Facultad de Ciencias Humanas y de Educación. A random sample of 300 students was taken. Students were grouped in 20 participants per group. These groups tasted the dishes and two research instruments were applied, both for the sensory organoleptic analysis and the recognition of emotions. As final results, there is the validation of the data obtained by the aforementioned instruments. Different statistical methods were applied for the correlation of the variables. The data was processed through the support of the SPSS statistical software so that the following results were obtained. Now we can see the different results we got, and there were some parameters we studied, such as color, smell, flavor, and texture. Statistical calculation of experimentation. The Friedman test is considered for the development of the correlation of the variables. It can be shown that having a p-value less than 0.005, the new hypothesis is rejected and the alternative is accepted. That is to say, emotions are directly related to the sensory organoleptic analysis of the dishes. For the identification of the Ecuadorian food heritage, the gathering of information is considered by means of the Atlas of the Food Heritage of Ecuador. These files were adapted according to the needs of the research, based on the methodological manual for the elaboration of the Food Heritage Atlas, which is an initiative from the Ministry of Culture and Heritage 2020. Conclusions. This research project has met the proposed objectives, allowing the students of the majors of Facultad de Ciencias Humanas y de Educación to be the direct beneficiaries of the articulation of this project with their graduation research work, thereby promoting that the research field is significantly expanded. That is to say, both professors and students from research work teams that allow the social, economic, and innovative contribution that research requires. Innovative proposals have been developed both in the gastronomic, psychological, and technological part. They allow the dissemination of updated modern information and above all, the use of new techniques and technologies without leaving aside the part of ancestrality as a focal point in this research. This is the case of the new recipes based on the Ecuadorian food heritage. The dissemination of information played a fundamental role which allowed Ambatos community to learn about new gastronomic routes, the development of mobile applications to promote tourism in both its small towns as well as in the whole province. And finally, the development of innovative products such as the recognition of emotions based on tasting of products made using cutting-edge gastronomic techniques, automating processes, and consequently generating new technologies. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.